Welcome into this Friday edition of Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery. Today on the show, it's time for the Falcons to develop their new wide receivers. Options are getting thin for the Atlanta Braves, and this quarterback starting rumor thing, blah, I don't know. I'll explain all that. It's Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked on Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked on Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Welcome in on a Friday edition of Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here in Locked on Sports Atlanta. Head to youtube.com, put Locked on Sports Atlanta into your search browser. When you find us, hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment. Free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify and Odyssey. Download us today and leave us a 5-star review. Then give me a follow on my personal Twitter page. That would be at JMCH316. You know, one of the things that the Atlanta Falcons have done in this run, really even since the very first Super Bowl run in 1998, is they have drafted and developed wide receivers very well, right? But I'm going to give you an interesting number here, okay? In the year of our Lord, 1999, at the height of the Attitude Era in the WWE, in 1999, Terrence Mathis went for 1,016 yards and 6 touchdowns as an Atlanta Falcons wide receiver, okay? Since that time, there's only been one player who's not named Roddy White, Julio Jones, or Calvin Ridley that has been a 1,000-yard wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. That was Harry Douglas in 2013 with 1,067 yards and 2 touchdowns. And remember, that's the year that the Falcons had Julio, Roddy, all were hurt, right? And Harry was literally the only option that was left, okay? So while the Falcons have done a good job over this run of always having one or two high-caliber wide receivers, Roddy, Julio, Ridley, right? All guys that they drafted, all guys that they developed, all guys that played throughout here. They need to go find their next crop of wide receivers. And obviously they've drafted Drake London this year. We'll see what he can become. But you would have thought that along the way, somebody not named Roddy, Julio, or Ridley since 1999, which is what, 23 years ago, you've had one guy who had sort of a breakout season. And to be honest, the only reason that guy had a breakout season is because of injuries, right? The two top dogs were gone. Harry only had 1,067 yards. If Roddy and Julio are still healthy and playing, he wouldn't get that. So the Falcons need to start finding themselves some wide receivers and building some depth and things like that. You know, look, every team in the league is looking at having their one big wide receiver, right? But a lot of teams do have a complementary piece that is, and look, the Falcons have even done this, right? Because when they drafted Julio, they already had Roddy in place, so you had 2 primary wide receivers. And then with Julio here, and he became the top dog, right? Then they drafted Ridley, and you had 2 threats. Falcons need to find those additional threats at wide receiver. Now, I'm not saying let's go back down the Detroit Lions route of investing another top 10 pick into a pass catcher. Back-to-back years of top 10 pass catchers when you desperately needed offensive and defensive line help. I'm pumping the brakes on all that. Again, 3 years after the Lions drafted those 3 wide receivers in the top 10, they were an 0-16 team. Have to find a different way to win. But what I'm hoping for, and I say I'm hoping for, is the idea that they develop somebody that they have right now within house. And we'll talk more about this in just a second. But BetOnline.net, we talk about them all the time here on the show. The fastest, easiest way to find out and check on all of your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events, the number one online source for odds, lines, games. We're in the heart of baseball season, right? Things are cranked up and going now that we're past the All-Star break. Golf, MMA, boxing. We're about to hit in the NFL season, right? All kinds of things that you want to start putting some wagering on. BetOnline.net is your easiest and best source to do that. It's a top online resource for sports wagering information, live in-game betting, scores, podcasts, everything that you want. And they've got every sport there available to you, including combat sports, esports, even golf that's available to you. Hit them up at betonline.net. Use your mobile device today. Learn about the action that's happening. betonline.net is where the game starts. So, look, I'm hoping that whether it's the Edwards kid that they traded for the Raiders, it's Auden Tate, it's somebody. But they're going to have to start rebuilding this whole wide receiver movement. Now, look, I know some people are going to say, well, Calvin Ridley's still there. He's just on suspension. The days of Calvin Ridley as an Atlanta Falcon are over and done with. And I firmly believe that. If they were looking to trade him before without knowing he's going to get suspended, they're certainly going to move on from him now. To cost them a year, and look, he becomes a valuable trade piece, not just because of Calvin Ridley, the person, production and things like that, but, you know, if you trade him, he's only on the final year of his rookie deal. He still gets his rookie contract, which I want to say was $10 or $12 million or something like that. It was a very reasonable price for a year that a team could take that on and then, okay, let's sign him to a big deal or let's extend him now or whatever. He can become a very attractive trade piece. His days as an Atlanta Falcon are done and over. So let's see, first off, if Drake London can assume that role. Because if you think about it, he's a higher draft pick than Roddy. He's a higher draft pick than Ridley. Only Julio, who was drafted at number 6, is higher than what Charles London is at number 8. So you have a lot of high draft capital in here. Can Charles London be Julio, Ridley, Roddy? I don't know. I don't know. I know he's got all the ability in the world. I know he's got plenty of skill. He really made a lot of different Southern Cal quarterbacks look good this past season with his ability to go get the ball, with his ability to catch in traffic, his ability to, put his hands on just about anything. He made a lot of good quarterbacks. Jackson Dart and some of those guys have life in college football still because of the work that guys like Drake London did at Southern Cal. So I'm hoping that he is that guy and he's that next wave of top flight wide receiver, but they have to find more. They have to find this next group of guys. The league is a passing league. You have to be able to have your quarterback stand in the pocket, push the ball downfield. That's life in the NFL, okay? NFL life isn't 2 tight ends in the eye and run it downfield. The NFL isn't just all gimmicked offense and things like that. Your quarterback has to be able to stand in the pocket, push the ball downfield. You need guys who can catch the ball out there. But it's surprising to think that the Falcons haven't had any other complementary piece other than the one injury year. It speaks to at least how the overlapping of all of their top wide receivers was. That you had Roddy, then comes Julio, and as Roddy fades out, here comes Ridley. So at least the Falcons have done a good job over this run since, really, if we want to call it even the pre-Mike Smith era, right? The Jim Mora era, of Falcons football post life after Dan Reeves, is they've been able to have some wide receivers that have been very productive for them. But now they have to go find it. And it seems like the way that they're doing it is not necessarily through the draft, but what they're doing is they're trying to go out there and find these quote-unquote big targets and things like that. I'm hopeful. I'm excited to see. I'm big on the idea of Auden Tate. I'm big on the idea of Edwards. I think that there are guys here that, if given the chance and because of other situations that they were in, Tate's a guy who, because of his injuries, got squeezed out of Cincinnati, and the fact that they have Jamar Chase and Boyd and Higgins, he gets squeezed out. The Raiders moved on from Edwards. They feel like they have answers. And obviously Waller's a tremendous tight end out there. And they just signed Adams to, the gargantuan contract. So it's time for the Falcons to build this wide receiver room back up. Let's see if they can find, we've drafted Drake, who can be that complementary piece for this team. All right, when we come back, options are getting thin for the Atlanta Braves. We'll talk about that next. It is Jon Chuckery hitting hard on Locked On Sports Atlanta.